Hi there, this is Jonathan Solek, and I'm an artist. And what I'd like to talk a little bit about today is how not to figure out what you want to do with your art. As an artist, it might be that we come across these large questions of what we want to do with our art, what we want our art to accomplish, what we wish it looked like, the skills that we wish we had, all of that. And these are large questions that we might find we ask ourselves and are so incredibly difficult to answer, especially in the afternoon that the questions come to mind and you feel that they need addressing. So you sit there and kind of ponder these things for a little bit. You look at your artwork and the work of other artists and you just wonder, okay, what is it that I need to do? How can I get my art to achieve what it is that this artist is accomplishing, or just any great artist? What is it that they do so successfully, that the different parts of an artwork, the concept, the technique, the design, the subject, how is it that all of these things come together and do for me what it is doing? And these are good things to think about, but really doesn't necessarily help you figure out what it is that you are to do with your own work. Because the fact of the matter is that although we may be incredibly inspired and motivated by the work of other artists, we cannot put these pieces together in the same way. It isn't within our skill set or our experience. It isn't an expression of what it is that you have really going on as an artist. Although you may find that you relate to the art in some way, whether that is through its subject matter, the concept, or the technique, or all of them together even. But as much as you may relate, a single artist is a unique individual, and what we do as that individual is going to be as unique as us, and it ought to be. So I was thinking about I was thinking about recently how it is that I relate to the artwork that I love, how my work relates to it, how I relate to my artwork, what it is that I produce. And these challenging questions come up. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about, what to look out for, make sure that you aren't paralyzed by these questions, and hopefully provide some solace, because it can be, at least it has been in my experience, I have a day that has me thinking about all of these things, and I just find it nearly impossible to work on my own artwork, and that can last a few days or whatever. Sometimes it can last as much as a week, and maybe I'm still doing some amount of artwork, but because my mind is kind of plagued by these questions, I'm not approaching my art sober-mindedly and kind of clear of the thoughts and questions that will make it difficult for me to produce something that I enjoy, or even enjoy the process of producing a piece of artwork. So in terms of how it is that we relate to some of the artwork that we admire so much is, of course, to remember that artist is still working, if they're still alive. And there's, even artists who are long gone, but still such an inspiration because of the work that they left behind. It's really not hard to imagine that throughout their lives, as they worked, they were concerned with some of the same questions, and maybe they had a lot of tools to kind of handle what it is that they wanted to accomplish, but they were likely still asking some of those same questions and dealing with that throughout their careers. And so it is important to keep that in perspective. Maybe the large difference is they kept making work, they kept exploring the things that they were interested in, while you are busy trying to figure out what it is that you're interested in and not producing. Or when you do produce, it's in a shy manner, you're still drawing, you're still painting, but you don't want to contend with what it is that you want to do because you don't want to mess up. You don't want to find that what you thought you wanted to do is unachievable or just boring or whatever it may be. So there's a few important things to keep in mind, not least of which being that you ought to be doing something rather than nothing. You ought to be producing work even when you're facing all of these questions, and keeping yourself motivated to do that. And that can be really challenging, but I personally have felt so many times that I need to think about some of these questions for a bit, maybe over the course of a few days or something, and then I'll have some more direction as an artist. And I think it's possible to kind of go through that thought process, take a moment and be thinking about things before you put pencil to paper or brush to canvas. But I know the way that I am, and I don't think it's so different than other people. And I know in my experience that paralyzing effect that some of these questions can have means you're just not producing artwork. You're not even studying the way that you should, and so consider that you could work on something that is less psychologically or intellectually demanding as you think about some other things. Make sure that you're just doing something. You're working on artwork. And you may be pleasantly surprised by how these these little almost mindless studies go if you're just working on something. So that can be whatever. As far as how you relate to other artists, because this is something that I was struggling with recently, is, I see this artist's work and I admire so much about it, and I want to understand, how that's possible. But unless you are able to consider their work more objectively, do studies of it, and try to figure out what it is that is successful in their design or their technique. Try to dive into the concept a little bit. You can do that, but make sure you are not approaching that from a perspective of jealousy or envy, because that only hurts you more. And I was struggling with that myself a little bit. I was just finding myself to be so inspired by what I was looking at, or so caught up in my admiration of the work, that all I wanted to do really was be looking at it. And then when you look back at your blank canvas or your sketchbook page that's sitting there waiting for you to do something, you don't know what to do yourself. And so just watch out for that, and make sure that you aren't allowing yourself to be too caught up in what somebody else is doing, such that it interferes with your own process or your own motivation to create something. And understand that you are not going to be the artist that you want to be overnight. I am afraid that I have to be reminded of this, but it's a good thing to remember, and can let you calm down a little bit, because this whole endeavor is something, at least for me, I know I want to be going on for the rest of my life. I hope to answer some of the questions that I currently have, but that will come with time, or maybe those questions go unanswered completely, but I don't want to have nothing to show for the years of work anyways. That would be the most disappointing. So keep making art and allow yourself to be surprised by what you see when you look back at your work, whether that just be the technical progress you make, or the subject that you find yourself working with, the concepts that you're interested in, or maybe it's devoid of concept and you're just trying to make things that are visually appealing. And these are questions that I struggle with myself, but all of these things can be answered sort of retrospectively, I think. The potential is there, and being open to that is a good thing. And the last note I think I want to end on is seek out sources of inspiration that are personal to you, whether that feeds your concept of your artwork, the subject matter, or just your sense of visual appeal. Because if it's if it's all coming from other artwork, that can be sort of derivative, and I think if it is too derivative for you as an artist, it will be sort of empty, and so seek out sources of inspiration that are personal, and I think that they will yield something more beautiful for you. And so that's it for now. If you've made it to the end, thank you for checking out this video, and I hope you enjoyed the painting process of this self-portrait. And I hope to post another video before it is so long again. But until then, goodbye, and keep making art.